Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show, where you will find tips and advice that will help you declutter your first 100 items. And, and today I have a very special guest. He is Joshua Becker, best-selling author of several books on simplicity, and he is the mastermind behind the famous blog Becoming a Minimalist. Welcome, Joshua. It's an honor to have you again on the show.
Well, thank you so much. You always give the best introduction, so I'll come around just for the introduction.
Thank you. You have been one of the awesome experts that have been featured in the Midway Simplicity show in 2012, then in the book as well. And I'm happy to have you again on board in this new project in 2013 about decluttering, which seems to be the number one challenge that people are facing when they start to simplify their lives. So let's begin. If you can share with us your story when you started decluttering. How did you get to declutter the first 100 items?
Sure, and I agree with you. Decluttering is one of the biggest topics. It's one of the, as far as search engine traffic, it's one of the words that people are searching for that stumble upon my blog. So I do tend to write a lot, thinking through, just helping someone begin the decluttering process. So really a pleasure to be here. I had started out my journey to minimalism, or just the decluttering process, after a morning I had spent cleaning in the garage, when it suddenly occurred to me how much time and energy my possessions were taken away from me, and the things that I really wanted to pursue. So the first thing that I did in decluttering is I actually decluttered our cars. Like that was where I started, because I was doing the garage and moved the vehicles back in, and started grabbing some things out of the vehicles, which was easy. I mean, there's some CDs and there was old maps and some things in the back seat and sunglasses, and so it wasn't difficult to do, and that always formed the kind of my philosophy for decluttering, at least getting started decluttering. I always say start easy, start with the low-hanging fruit, start with the things that you just look at and you know that you don't need them in your life anymore, and pick an area of the house that would be easy to start in, as opposed to something difficult.
Yeah, that's great. And from there, you started decluttering the other areas of your home, maybe?
Yes, yeah, we did
Yeah.
the cars, and then we did the living room. The living room
Yeah.
was easy for us because it wasn't piles of things, but you could look around and see an old magazine rack that we didn't need. There's different figurines that we got on the shelves that we just didn't need, and kind of moved from there to from there we went to the bathrooms, to the closets. I mean, to the wardrobe, to the bedrooms, and then save some of the harder things for later. The
So
attic
you
and
just
the
wanted
toilet.
to build the momentum, and you experience the effect or the impact of decluttering on creating a room to breathe and find space for doing other important stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting
Okay.
with something visible, a place that
Yes.
you live often, so you can kind of pick up on how it improves your life and allows your room to breathe and energy to flow.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
stuff.
Let me share with you some of the challenges that people shared with me uh, when it comes to decluttering their stuff. One of them, which is people are overwhelmed by the too much stuff that they own, so that they cannot imagine how to tackle this decluttering project. I have too many things. How and where to start? So,
Yeah, and it always starts in just one area. You don't declutter everything at once. If you're to run a marathon, you don't run 26 miles the first day. You run 1 mile the first day, and you run 2 miles, 2 days later. And so, just pick up. If you're talking about one area of the house, if it's the kitchen, you just start in one drawer. You start in one cabinet, and you just work your way through one at a time, bit by bit, piece by piece. It's the only way. It's the only way to do it. Even if you want to tackle the whole room at once, you still have to go drawer by drawer, cabinet by cabinet.
Yeah. Another thing is that another challenge is lack of organizational skills. Because there is a of course there is a relation between organization and decluttering. So if I lack organizational skills, how can I approach decluttering?
Well, number one, I've never thought that I was a natural organizer. It still isn't something that comes very natural to me, and so I find I find an extra importance in decluttering because I'm not as good at organizing. If I if I had things and I had neat little homes and little bins and places for everything, my life would function a little bit better. But because I've never been good at that, I've always thought the less stuff I own, the less stuff I would have to organize and would have to find places for, and my life would move easier and more freely. So, just because someone isn't good at organizing, that shouldn't be a frustration for them in decluttering. Instead, I think it should motivate them to do even more.
Hmm. And what about if you are too exhausted, your lifestyle uh, makes you so busy, you have a lot of tasks to take care of, a lot of people to take care of, like kids or something like that, and you don't have either the time or the energy to do the decluttering work. What can you do?
That is a great question. I can remember starting the process in my home, going a couple weeks into it, and sensing all the rooms that still needed to get done and all the decluttering that still happened. Only that I just needed to take an evening. I just needed to rest. I can remember watching a basketball game on television, thinking, "Man, I should be decluttering, but I just can't right now. I need to rest." So a couple thoughts. Number one, decluttering isn't a race. You're not in competition with anyone else. So feel free taking your time and fitting it into your schedule when you can. I would recommend that people make time at the beginning, whether it's for me, it was waking up early. I got up early, 1 hour every day, and did some stuff before my wife got up and the kids got up. Others could find a Saturday morning, maybe even take an afternoon off of work if that would be allowable, and beginning the process, because once the process begins, there's extra energy that goes into the decluttering at the beginning. But once you begin removing those things from your life, you find more time and you find more energy and you find more opportunity and capacity to do more later on. And so sometimes it's just the getting started, which rewards you in more time that you can then direct towards decluttering more and finding more time.
That's great. And another challenge is how to deal with the consumer-based environment that I'm living in and the resistance from family and friends who do not understand the value of simple living, owning less, and all this stuff. How to communicate this and get their buy-in or their support, or at least to avoid the resistance.
Sure, and that comes about more at special times of the year. Christmas, we just had Christmas time here in America, so Christmas time, birthdays, birth of a child. There are all these new things that start to enter into our lives as far as our relationship with our relatives and with our family. And I think people need to remember that if they have made this change in their life, that it doesn't mean that the same change has taken place in their relatives' lives. It also means if you have just made the change, sometimes I think your extended family needs time to see that you actually mean it and that you actually believe it. It's just so countercultural to genuinely say, no, I don't want new things. I don't want to own more stuff. I want to own less. I think it takes time for that um, um, intentional living, that lifestyle to seep into your extended family. So for us, at the very beginning, our families didn't have much change. They still gave us the same things that they gave us, and I was a little frustrated with it at first because I was trying to get rid of things, but I started to understand. I started to have a little more patience with them, and now 4 years later, they get the picture. They know that it's not just a fad that we're going through, but something that we genuinely believe in and want to base our life upon. So, give your family time with that, and declutter as things come in, and they'll, I just hate when I hear it. People get upset with their parents for buying them things, or they get it. I don't think it's worth getting upset about. Instead, show a little patience and grace with them.
There are some challenges that are associated with items that we own. For example, how to declutter items that are associated with good memories. Items that are very valuable and precious, but we don't need it anymore. Valuable gifts that we got from people who are very close to us, but we no longer need. How to get rid of these stuff that are associated with either value or memory, or with people that we love, but we don't really use or no longer need.
Yeah, and I think a principle that has worked for me and works for a lot of people, whether you're talking about sentimental items or whether you're talking about any object in your home that you are worried about getting rid of. That may change from person to person, and I always recommend the use of boundaries, self-imposed limitations. I was talking to a gal one time at a conference I had spoken at, and she said, my theory is I keep all my memories into one drawer of my dresser, and everything I can fit into that drawer, I'm allowed to keep. And once it gets bigger than the drawer, then I have to start making some decisions about what to keep and what to get rid of. And I think that sort of self-imposed boundary is helpful for people to separate the very important from the just kinda important. When you only get one shelf of memories or one drawer full of memories, you start to decide pretty quickly, okay, this I'm absolutely not getting rid of. This one, maybe if there's room, maybe if there isn't. And you start to see what things really hold the truest value and the greatest memories for you. So I would tell someone to to pick a limitation. It doesn't have to be a drawer. It could be one box. It could be one shelf. Whatever you need based on where you start to get down to less will start the process for you, and then a little bit later on you could probably revisit it and get down to even less if you wanted. And just because you get rid of it doesn't mean you're getting rid of the memories. You can still take photos of the image of the items that you're getting rid of, and still spark some of those memories if you need to. So even getting rid of it doesn't mean that you're losing the person per se.
Yeah, the photo trick is very interesting and very nice. It really works because it keeps the memory. Yeah. So you touched upon the decision-making process. When you have to decide this item I should keep and this item I should get rid of, how can you decide? Are there general principles that you can, or a checklist that you review, and based upon it you decide this one you should keep, this one you should get rid of, or?
I without sitting down and intentionally thinking through my thought process, I don't have a checklist. There's nothing that I have written down that I've said if I answer these three questions, then I'm going to keep it. At first, we just removed the things that we knew that we didn't need, and we didn't use, and got rid of those things. And as we did, it opened up our minds to start looking at our remaining possessions a little bit differently. And as we began to see how our life got better with owning less stuff, it spurred us on to think, okay, what can I also get rid of? And so I think our whole worldview changed, as opposed to can I get can I get rid of this and still function? It changed into, okay, what can I also get rid of? What can I also declutter? And so I don't think I ever had a checklist, to give to people. Sorry about that. It was just
Yeah,
more.
yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. And how did you deal with the popular "what if" dilemma? What if I will need it a year later? What if someday someone will ask me for this thing? The what if.
Yeah. At first I kept a lot of those things. I put them in a box and put them in the basement where they were out of my view and out of what I had going on in front of me, so that my living areas, the kitchen and the living room and the bedrooms, like those were very decluttered. Meanwhile, I was collecting a lot of things in the basement. Um, so again, I started easy. I started the things that I knew I didn't get, I knew I wouldn't need, and held on to some of those what ifs. And then, one of the things that I did, which I would recommend to people, is if I had any what if questions. We did our kitchen, and I had a lot of different cookware and utensils and things in our kitchen that I wasn't sure if we would ever use again. Did I use that at Thanksgiving or not? Those types of questions. And so we had a box, and we put all the cookware in the box, and I put a date on the box of whatever day we had thrown everything in there, and I pushed it in the basement. And then 6 months later, I stumbled across the box with the date on it, and I'm like, man, I didn't use any of these things or even miss them over the past 6 months. I'm probably safe removing them completely from my life. So the dating the box tip was pretty helpful for us at the beginning.
Wow, that's a very interesting technique or method. Now let's end up with a couple of decluttering methods that are not too time consuming, that are easy. Things like you just shared, putting a date on a box when you will get rid of things and so on. Let's end up with two of your favorite decluttering techniques.
Sure. My all-time favorite is the clothes hangers. Take your clothes hangers and flip them all backwards, so they hang the unnatural way in your closet. Start them all that way, and then as you use an item, you return it back and you hang it normally. And so you have hangers facing different ways, and after 3-4 months, you're able to see which clothes you haven't even touched over the past 3 or 4 months, and which clothes you wear most regularly. So that's always a fun technique and a fun tip that I use. I also like the idea of, like I mentioned, the self limitations or the boundaries. I'm a kind of a competitive guy at nature. I like the idea of a challenge, and so I've always found motivation in a challenge. Courtney Carver does this Project 333, where you wear 33 articles of clothing for 3 months, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a fun challenge. Can I do it? Can I get rid of this many things and live on just this stuff? And so using that, whether it be, could I live without watching my TV for 2 weeks? Could I live with just eating the food in my house for a couple weeks? Could I live with just this many things for this amount of a time? And as you do, I think that you see the benefit of that. You see that you really do have a lot of excess in your possessions and in your life that you can trim down to focus on what's most important.
Wow, that's very interesting. And do you have a final quote or words of wisdom that you would like to share with us about simplicity or decluttering before we end the call?
Yeah, you know what? We got rid of most of our possessions, and our life is far better because of it. And I think it always starts, decluttering always starts with the realization that we own too much, and our lives would improve by owning less. And whether it starts out of a frustrated moment when we look around our house and just hate that it's messy all the time, or we read an article online and think, yeah, you know what, I see something in there. It always starts with a belief and a realization that your life would improve by decluttering and owning less. And from there, just take the momentum step by step, room by room, drawer by drawer, and until you finish it all.
Wow, wow. And I urge people to read your latest book, Living with Less, An Unexpected Key to Happiness. It's an awesome book. and to find more about you as well at becomingminimalist.com, right?
That is it. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you so much, Joshua, for being my guest again on the show today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Really a pleasure to be here. I had started out my journey to minimalism, or just the decluttering process, after a morning I had spent cleaning in the garage, when it suddenly occurred to me how much time and energy my possessions were taken away from me, and the things that I really wanted to pursue. So the first thing that I did in decluttering is I actually decluttered
that have been featured in the Midway Simplicity show in 2012, then in the book as well. And I'm happy to have you again on board in this new project in 2013 about decluttering, which seems to be the number one challenge that people are facing when they start to simplify their lives. So let's begin. If you can share with us your story. Very special guest. He is Joshua Becker, best-selling author of several books on simplicity, and he is the mastermind behind the famous blog Becoming a Minimalist. Welcome, Joshua. It's an honor to have you again on the show.
Well, thank you so much. You always give the best introduction, so I'll come around just for the introduction.
Thank you. You have been one of the awesome experts that when you started decluttering, how did you get to declutter the first 100 items?
Sure, and I agree with you. Decluttering is one of the biggest topics. It's one of the, as far as search engine traffic, it's one of the words that people are searching for that stumble upon my blog. So I do tend to write a lot, thinking through, just helping someone begin the decluttering process. So really.
Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Tuhami, author of Midway Simplicity, and welcome to a new episode of the Midway Decluttering Show, where you will find tips and advice that will help you declutter your first 100 items. And, and today I have a very